one more time, welcome to our attendees. We're just going to give it a couple seconds here for our attendees to all join the webinar. And as a reminder for our attendees, if you'd like to make a comment in either of the two sections this evening, please add your name and address to the chat. Either section 1.8, the agendas, inquiries and comments pertaining to the agenda items, or our regular comment section, which is 9 this evening, citizens inquiries and comments general. So if you'd like to make a comment, feel free to add your name and address into the chat box. All right, Mr. Gatanis, it looks like our attendance has stabilized here, so we're ready to go ahead and get started.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. All right, welcome everybody to the June 16th regular board meeting. Before we get started here, pursuant to Board Policy 1B5, all meetings of the Salisbury Township School District are audio and video recorded. The district disclaims any and all liability arising from the recordings of the meetings and for any statements made by those in attendance. So with that, call this meeting to order. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, can we please have a roll call?
Yes, Mr. DeFrank.
Here.
Ms. Frick.
Here.
Mr. Gatanis.
Here.
Ms. Glenister.
Here.
Mr. Ganal.
Here.
Mr. Hattinger.
Here.
Ms. Klinger.
Here.
Mrs. Nemitz.
Here.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will not have any student representatives today. All right, it takes us to 1.5, special recognitions and presentations, which I know we do have. Ms. Feeney-Hatton, are you going to be leading this?
Sure, we have 2 special recognitions this evening, and Mr. Taylor is going to start with the first one for Mrs. Mary Kay Parlow.
So we have Mary Kay Parlow on with us tonight, and she is retiring shortly after a long 22 years of service here with the district. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to recognize her and appreciate her efforts and hard work that she's put in through all these years, through all the challenges that we've faced through the district through the years. She's been a steady trooper, and we would not have been able to get through this last year without her. So we want to definitely thank her for all of her hard work and dedication. And at this time, I'd like to read the resolution we have for her. And it's presented to Mary Kay Parlow in grateful recognition of services rendered to the Salisbury Township School District. Whereas Mrs. Parlow has completed 22 years of distinguished service as a substitute instructional assistant, clerk typist, and accounts payable administrative assistant in the Salisbury Township School District from 1999 to 2021. And whereas Mrs. Parlow was a dedicated employee who served the district in multiple roles, and whereas Mrs. Parlow worked effectively to support elementary school students within and beyond the classroom walls, including attending field trips, and whereas Mrs. Parlow was a valuable team member, providing excellent clerical and administrative services to our administrators, administrative assistants, and the faculty at Salisbury Township School District. And whereas Mrs. Parlow performed all of her responsibilities with persistent dedication and observance to what was best for the district. And whereas Mrs. Parlow acted as a professional in all of her responsibilities, and whereas Mrs. Parlow routinely went above and beyond in her job description to collaborate with other staff members to support the district, and whereas Mrs. Parlow understood the meaning of community and supported each staff member at Salisbury Township School District. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of School Directors of Salisbury Township School District tenders Mrs. Parlow the sincere thanks and appreciation of the board for her untiring efforts on behalf of our public schools and for her devoted and successful labors in the cause of public education. And be it further resolved that this resolution be made permanent part of the record of this public meeting, June 16th, 2021. Thank you again, Mary Kay. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Mike. I can't believe I just heard all that. This day has come. But I would like to say thank you to everyone for giving me this opportunity for the past 22 years to serve the district. I started here in the 1990s as a volunteer, and never did I think I'd be here this long as an employee, never mind just a volunteer. But our 3 children, Jason, Greg, and Allison, were educated through Salisbury, graduated, and they received the best of education because they are all so very successful in their lives today. So that I say thank you to all of you. And just thank you again for everything. I'll miss all of you, but I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of you throughout the township since I live here. So thank you for everything. You guys have been wonderful throughout this pandemic, all of you. And I appreciate for all the work you have all done through this pandemic. And I wish you a much better year next year. And hopefully the pandemic will lighten up on all of you. I don't know how you did it, but so thank you for everything. I appreciate it all.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary
Thank
Kay.
you, Mary Kay.
Thank
Congratulations.
you for your service.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor and Mrs. Mary Kay Parlow. Congratulations again. And we will move on to our second recognition this evening. And that will be with Mr. Brem recognizing Mrs. Liz Seaman.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to recognize Liz Seaman for her contribution to the district. I had the pleasure of working with Liz this past school year at Salisbury Elementary School. Prior to that, her years of service were at Western Salisbury Elementary. So in grateful recognition of services rendered to the Salisbury Township School District, whereas Mrs. Seaman has completed over 28 years of distinguished services as an instructional assistant at Western Salisbury Elementary School and Salisbury Elementary School from 1993 to 2021. And whereas Mrs. Seaman was an outstanding instructional assistant who went above and beyond for her students on a daily basis. And whereas Mrs. Seaman assumed many responsibilities in supporting the needs of students and the school community. And whereas Mrs. Seaman provided effective communication and collaboration, showing professionalism and compassion at all times. And whereas Mrs. Seaman brought a sense of pride to schools and stood as a role model for both staff and students. And whereas Mrs. Seaman cared for each and every child, helping them to learn and succeed while showing a genuine interest in each child's academic achievement, emotional welfare, and social growth. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of School Directors of the Salisbury Township School District tenders Mrs. Seaman the sincere thanks and appreciation of the board for her untiring efforts on behalf of our public schools and for her devoted and successful labors in the cause of public education. And be it resolved further that this resolution be made a permanent part of the record of this public meeting, June 16th, 2021. Thank you, Liz, for all of the service that you provided for our students and our staff. And I think Liz is here. Liz, I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yes, I have learned a lot working at the school district, the special needs children, especially. They each have a special gift, and working with them, I was able to learn what that gift was and bring it out in them. And even watching a child develop in is special in the learning field. The small steps they make and seeing the progress makes one feel special. I enjoy being part of their learning and growth, watching them try new things on their own and then socializing with others. It's big progress. So I also enjoyed working with the teachers as well as with all the other IAs and the staff. We all worked together as a team, and I appreciated that. And that's what made Salisbury very special to me and to my children as well, when I would relate to them, how we would work all together. And for that, I am glad that I was there for the 28th year and I was part of the Salisbury Township family. And I thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Liz, for your service. Greatly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Liz, and thank you to both you and Mary Kay for taking a few minutes to let us celebrate and recognize you. Again, we appreciate your service and dedication to the district, both of you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, Mr. Gatanis?
Okay, thank you. And congratulations to the two of you again. This is a new beginning, not an end. Okay, that takes us to 1.6. Any changes or additions to the agenda?
Yes, we have, administration has recommendation for 3 additions and changes to the agenda this evening. The first change that I would like to propose to the agenda is in the health and safety plan item under Operations Committee, item 3.1. There is a revised plan. The plan was revised this afternoon based on feedback from our health partners, both St. Luke's and our school physician, Dr. Fabian. And the significant change is to require masking for unvaccinated children and staff. So that revised plan, I'm proposing that we make a motion to amend the agenda to include that revised plan. And then when we get to that section, excuse me, 3.1, the board can discuss that plan and determine whether or not it agrees with the plan. And then there would be a roll call vote on that plan. So this is likely a conversation that we need to have as a board. You know, we have received information from families, proponents of masks, and also for families who do not wish to use masks. So some conversation about that to determine what the board will approve. And then there are 2 other items, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, so we're proposing adding 2 more items on the operations agenda. Item 3.27 would be an exoneration of delinquent taxes. The board has had discussions in executive sessions about a potential exoneration here, and this is based on a property that has been vacant for many years. And over the last 4 years, there's been no owner that's been paying the taxes. A new owner is buying the property and will be paying taxes going forward. So we're proposing the agreement for the exoneration of the delinquent taxes when it was a vacant property. And then adding 3.28, which would be settlement stipulations for 3 civil actions that the district had filed regarding assessment appeals. We have agreement of a settlement from the property owner to increase the assessed values. We just need the board to approve those tonight to finalize those agreements. So those are the 2 additional items that we would propose adding to the agenda tonight. So at this point, the administration is just looking for the board to make a motion to accept these changes.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended with these 3 additional, or 2 additional and 1 amended item.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Those in favor of approving the agenda with those changes, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes us to citizen inquiries and comments pertaining to agenda items. Do we have any, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, it looks like I'm just trying to sort out that we have 2 people. It looks like one of them is for now and one's for the open comments at the end. So Robin Daw, I'm going to let in 1 second. And just remind people who are looking to speak, we are going to limit comments to 3 minutes per individual, and just to keep that in mind. And Robin should be available now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Robin, thank you.
Hi, Robin Dahl at 1740 East Susquehanna Street, Allentown, PA, 18103. The last comment, or the comment that I'd like to make, is regarding the vaccination with the masks. I guess my main concern is if we're worried about bullying now, those kids that are having to wear a mask, I can see that being a more aggression of bullying as well with the kids that are vaccinated. I'm concerned because also, why would they need to wear a mask to begin with if they're not vaccinated? How are anybody going to know? Because legally, you cannot ask for proof of vaccination, especially when the vaccine has not been federally approved. Also, as of June 28th, as long as we either hit 70% of the county being vaccinated or we hit June 28th, the mask mandate will be lifted by the governor. And as of now, until I speak to my daughter's pediatrician, she is not being vaccinated at all. She has gone this long without having COVID, and I understand that it possibly could come back. Well, so could the flu. Not every child gets the flu shot either. So that is just my concern. I'm afraid of the bullying aspect, and also because of the fact that the mandate is being lifted as of June 28th. And I don't see how the school can actually allow the kids that are not vaccinated to have to make them wear a mask. Thank you again for your time. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Tom Spinner, and he should be in a moment.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So first off, good evening. Again, just thanks to everyone, administration, as well as the board for going through these incredibly unprecedented times with going through all the COVID and all the other nightmares that we've been facing the past year. Everyone's efforts are greatly appreciated. I just want to make a quick comment in regards to the masking change also. And one of the questions I have for the board is, again, the kind around, is there for potential legal ramifications? We've already seen several states where they're already passing legislation that's banning employers from being able to ask the question if they've been vaccinated or not. And we're also starting to see legislation here in Pennsylvania that's starting to go that route too. If you were to attempt to require this, what could the district be, potentially liable for? As a parent who's also been an avid traveler throughout all these times as an essential employee, just like all our teachers are, I've been all over the country and have not been, I have not come down with COVID, and I just don't see it I think it's unnecessary, especially given the fact our state is lifting mandates. So again, just appreciate everyone's time and thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have Mike Babb next. All right, Mike.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
My reason for speaking tonight has to do with the wearing of the symbolic masks. As anyone with common sense now knows, the masks were nothing more than a visual effect. On June 28th, all PA disaster declarations end. This means the COVID-19 state of emergency ends. Masks are no longer necessary, whether vaccinated or not. The mask mandate is over. Also, the state of PA, I'm sorry, on May 31st, attestation form expired. So beginning June 1st, parents could have and would have been able to claim a mask exemption for their children. As parents, we should be able to decide what is in our children's best interest when it comes to making medical decisions. Being forced to wear a mask is not in our children's best physical and psychological interest. I encourage the board to make the correct decision and make masks optional as to avoid future legal actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have Emily Pojanowski, and hang on one second while I find her. Actually, I think that Brian, okay. Emily and Brian, are you there? Brian, I have you on there, but you're muted still.
Mike, it looks like Mike Babb is still here.
Wait, what's your name?
All right, hang on, let's try it again. Let's try it again with, all right, Emily or Brian, are you there?
Unmute.
All right. I can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
I reside at 1562 Slidersville Road. I have 3 children in Salisbury.
I can't hear her.
Emily, we're having trouble hearing you.
Very faint, very faint.
Emily, we're having trouble hearing you. Okay, and at this point, it looks like you're muted now.
You can try going to the next and then come back to them. All right, so let's go to Russell Landy at this point.
So Emily, we'll come back to you after Russell.
Okay, Mr. Landy.
My name is Russell Landy. I'm over at 2255 South Ellsworth Street. I have 2 comments to make right now. The first comment is, we are just told right now that you have 3 minutes to speak. First of all, 3 minutes is not a sufficient time to speak when you have things that should be, or somebody desires to say to the board. Secondly, 3 minutes is not comparable with other districts and other public forums who give at least 5 minutes. I question why this 3-minute rule is brought up now without any warning or any input, because that's not transparent. And the board and members of the board had said that you're very transparent. Well, that's not transparent when we don't even get a reason why. Who came up with this new rule change? And why did the new rule change come up? Where's the transparency? I'm waiting to see transparency. That's what we were told. Secondly, there's a home that I'm understanding now that was given a tax forgiveness or forbearance. It was an abandoned home that was in delinquency. The home has a new owner, and now there was some backdoor agreement that was made to forgive the delinquent taxes in return for reassessment and some form of a smaller payment. How is this transparent? When the board has said numerous times that you're all about transparency, I'm asking the members of the board, how is this transparent? I'm kind of getting tired of constantly talking at meetings about transparency, and here's 2 examples where there's no transparency. That's not fair. The 3-minute rule needs to be dismissed and ceased until that can be discussed to find out why. And that's not a sufficient amount of time to be able to speak at a board meeting. And secondly, we should know more about this tax forgiveness, because to be quite honest with you, I'd like some tax forgiveness as well. My taxes are kind of high for my school taxes. Can I go to the board and ask you for a tax forgiveness this year? Because the $4,000 would go a long way in paying my bills. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna go back to
Pojanowski's.
Janowski, and hang on one second. All right, Brian or Emily, are you there?
Yeah, this is Brian. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good, good. Sorry about those technical difficulties there. So good evening to the board, every stakeholder who's listening in. Brian Pojanowski. I live 1562 Sidersville Road in Salisbury Township. Really tonight, I just want to take the board members and those listening tonight briefly through both a rhetorical and logical exercise. I admit I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't mean I can't speak common sense. First, I just think it's important to lay out some terms. Coronavirus, also known as SARS-CoV-2, is a virus. COVID-19 is the disease associated with that virus. Not everyone that contracts coronavirus would develop COVID-19. What this means is that to have COVID-19 is to have symptoms. To have no symptoms means you have simply contracted coronavirus. It's important to keep this in mind, this distinction between coronavirus and COVID-19 as I take us through this. Adolescents rarely develop COVID-19. By this, I mean they contract coronavirus. They are not symptomatic, rather asymptomatic. They are not spreaders of the disease because they rarely exhibit symptoms that would transmit the virus. If you're asymptomatic, it means you are not sick with COVID-19. You simply contracted coronavirus. You do not have COVID-19. People vaccinated for COVID-19 very rarely develop COVID-19. By this, I mean if they contract coronavirus, they are not symptomatic, rather asymptomatic. They are not spreaders of the disease because they rarely exhibit symptoms that would transmit the virus. If you are asymptomatic, it means you are not sick with COVID-19. You simply contracted coronavirus. You do not have COVID-19. The CDC acknowledges that the vaccine will help you from not getting COVID-19, but not from contracting coronavirus. Now let's unpack that through a logical lens. What is the difference between a child unvaccinated and contracts coronavirus and a child, or frankly adult or teacher for that matter, that received the vaccine and contracts coronavirus? There is no difference. Vaccinated people can have coronavirus and usually do not develop COVID-19. Adolescents can have coronavirus, but usually do not develop COVID-19. So if you as a board is looking at this from a risk assessment, where's the risk? It seems like the risk between the two is identical. So what's the point? I see the risk to those you are primarily responsible for, our Salisbury students. You will be facilitating the alienation of certain students for no reason. And I wanted to just make one last point. If the state of Pennsylvania and the Department of Health, who should be your primary partner, wants to mandate the COVID-19 vaccine for public school students, they can. In the way they have for other vaccines like MMR, which I'll note was introduced over 50 years ago, but they haven't. I ask you to stay in your lane when considering what is essentially a vaccine mandate. I will be mailing my full written statement to all those concerned and appreciate a written response. And I will yield back my time to Mr. Landy.
Mr. Pojanowski, did Emily want to speak as well?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Good evening. My name is Emily Pojanowski. I reside at 1562 Sidersville Road. My husband and I have 3 children in Salisbury who will be entering the 7th, 4th, and 2nd grades for the upcoming school year. I'm speaking to the board and administration this evening with respect to the district's revised or amended health and safety plan for the upcoming school year. The current plan, which I've read, obviously states that no mask would be worn by any individuals after June 28th of this year, which is in accordance with the Pennsylvania Department of Health's mandate or plan. Now I understand that that may have changed. Salisbury is not following our local and state guidance, but rather the CDC, whose guidance has to apply to a whole host of other regions and states with differing vaccination and case rates from our state. Pennsylvania's vaccination rates are around 60%, and that may not include unvaccinated individuals who have natural immunity from COVID-19, or others who also have immunity from having previous coronaviruses. So Pennsylvania has likely attained herd immunity, which is classified as 70% of a community that has some form of immunity. I encourage the board members and administration to ask their health partner at St. Luke's about the efficacy of masks. Last year, when cases were increasing and mask wearing was at its highest, masks did not prevent transmission of COVID-19. In fact, did you know that your average mask cannot prevent transmission of COVID-19? A single variant of COVID is invisible. They may catch visible spit or phlegm, but cannot stop the virus from moving through the masks. If you look at the box of paper masks you buy at the pharmacy, it contains a warning that they're not effective in preventing the transmission of coronavirus. Even N95 masks are effective at preventing only 95% of all particles, 0.3 microns or larger, and COVID is 0.1 micron. Why are we subjecting our children and ourselves to something that isn't even effective in preventing transmission? Please ask the district's health partner these specific questions, because when the facts are presented, the answers offered up do not make logical sense. Merely taking their word is no longer an option, as too many health journals, physicians, hospitals, etc. has stated one thing and then completely reversed the course with no new evidence to support the 180-degree change in opinion. Also, please ask your health partner about the Denmark study, which was the first randomized controlled trial, which is the gold standard of evidence on the effectiveness of face masks. The results showed the mask provided no significant effect in reducing the transmission of COVID. In regards to vaccines, I'm pro-vaccine and all my children are fully vaccinated. But I support those who choose not to get vaccinated and those who decide to vaccinate themselves. This policy of vaccination or else will force a hesitant parent to make a decision to intentionally inject their child with an emergency use vaccine and risk illness from the vaccine so their child does not have to wear a mask or have their child feel singled out if they are wearing that mask at school when their peers are not. I know Salisbury does not support bullying, and this policy is a form of bullying. Vaccinate or else we will single you out from your peers. As you are likely aware, the vaccine is still not fully approved by the FDA. It was only authorized for emergency use, which means that it only has to have a minuscule benefit over harm to the recipient. Furthermore, it is not a vaccine in the traditional sense and does not entirely prevent those who are vaccinated from contracting coronavirus. All of my children have been exposed by at least 4 adults, including me, my elderly parents, and their uncle, and they didn't get sick. My husband was also exposed to all of those adults as well, and he tested negative twice. Anyway, that's my mere anecdotal experience, but we use those anecdotal experiences and information we obtain doing our own research to help us form our own educated opinions. And my educated opinion is that no school should be telling any parents that they should inject their children when children as a whole do not get sick with something that is not fully approved and we do not yet know the full effects of, or doing so would cause them to risk isolation, or the alternative is not having to wear a mask and risking isolation or alienation from their peers. If Salisbury essentially requires a vaccine, then they should only do so if Pennsylvania and the federal government require it for school-age children as well. As of now, neither is requiring vaccination for children in order to attend public school. Also, I'm sorry, I know I'm taking a little bit of time, but I really think this is important to mention. I'm almost finished. But a recent study was done by parents in Gainesville, Florida. They submitted their children's masks worn that day at school, which were previously laundered for wear for that school day, to the University of Florida's lab to be analyzed. In those masks, they found bacteria, parasites, fungi, other bacteria which cause pneumonia, tuberculosis, meningitis, sepsis, E. coli, Lyme disease, Legionnaire's disease, but they didn't find any viruses on these masks. Masks provide a warm, moist environment for bacteria to grow. These kids are wearing them 6 to 8 hours a day, almost continuously. There have been days my children have come home crying because they've had to wear their masks all day. I also want to know, what's the end game here? When will it be okay for my children, vaccinated or not, or unvaccinated children, to not wear masks in Salisbury? In a couple months, next year, never? Please provide the data you are utilizing to make these decisions. If you continue on this path, many families will be forced to make a series of difficult decisions this summer, such as changing schools, whether they be private or charter, or homeschooling, or perhaps legal action. I am sure parents will take no pleasure in having to make any of these decisions, but as parents, we have a responsibility to our children, and as a school district, you do as well. Please remember that. On a side note, this is not part of the agenda this evening, but I'm extremely disappointed that the board has begun a search for an assistant superintendent. Our district has been.
We exceeded the 3 minutes, and this is only for agenda items. If you want to sign up for the end of the meeting for open public comment, feel free. But thank you for your comments.
Cut that off real quick.
Now we have Michelle Martucci, and it'll just be 1 second and I'll have you in there. Okay, Michelle.
Good evening, Michelle Martucci, 1003 Public Road in Bethlehem. I also am speaking regarding the change in the mask requirement. And honestly, everybody else that spoke before me, I personally think did a great job of expressing a lot of what I was going to say. So I'll just keep it brief. I think my biggest concern is the labeling of students and the potential for bullying. I'm concerned that, kids are already mean. So adding this will be just another factor of a way that a kid can get picked on because they have to wear a mask and their friends don't have to wear a mask. So that's a huge concern for me. I also am concerned that we're not going to follow the PA Department of Health, which is what I think we should be following as far as the mask mandates. So to make it short and brief, I honestly think it should just be a matter of making the mask optional. And if a family would like to still require their child to wear a mask at school, then they still can, but at least it gives us parents who would prefer to not have their children wear the mask the option to not allow them to wear the mask. So I would say to please make it optional. That way it makes it the parents' choice of what they want to do and we avoid this bullying situation. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Jody Finney and Jody.
Hi, this is Jody Finney. I live at 1430 Harriet Avenue in Salisbury Township. I'm also talking about the mask, which most of us are tonight. First and foremost, if we are requiring masks for unvaccinated students, unless some vaccine comes out for children, I believe right now it's it's 12 and older are eligible for a vaccine. I have a 9-year-old. That's the entire elementary school. And now with 5th grade at the middle school, at minimum, a quarter of the middle school who doesn't even have the option to be vaccinated if that was their parent's choice. And then I can't even imagine what that would look like in the middle school and high school setting of, switching classes. And does every teacher have a list of children who need to be masked versus doesn't need to be masked? And then that goes into who has access to my child's medical records in Salisbury School District, because I feel like unless it's pertinent information that a teacher has, which their vaccine records is not pertinent information to me. My children are fully vaccinated, but if I chose for them not to be, other than the school nurse, no one else would have that information for anything else, the flu, any of the dozens of things that they're vaccinated for. So that makes no sense to me. Again, it adds into bullying. That's not a huge concern of mine at the level that my child's at, but just who has access to this. I think as parents, a lot of us have, for lack of a better word, sucked it up this year and sent our kids back to school in masks, even though that's not what they wanted and that's not what we wanted, because they need to be in school, they need to be in person, and that's where they need to be learning. That's the traditional setting. But I'm sick of sucking it up. I'm not sucking anything up for the 2021-22 school year. And I just think this is absolutely ridiculous that we are not going to go against the Pennsylvania mandate and go with the CDC guidelines, when in the past it's, well, we have to go with the Pennsylvania mandate and what the governor says, but now we're backpedaling on that. It's incredibly frustrating. And I know a lot of parents and myself, we are just done. I'm done. I'm done sucking it up. I'm done bending over backwards to try to make things normal for my child, when in every aspect other in his life, things are normal. I know that the board has an incredibly hard job, and I hope that you guys vote no to this plan later on this evening. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Elizabeth Kramer in a moment. All right, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Kramer. I live at 2932 Greenbrier Lane, Allentown, Pennsylvania. I see there's lots of passion in the statements tonight. Obviously, this has been a difficult year. It's kind of a fraught subject. My background is actually in virology, and I will say that a lot of the comments tonight have merit, but there's also sometimes a lack of oversight of the real research that's been happening in real time. So I think that maybe the board should consider gathering experts from the community, doctors and nurses, and allowing them to have a panel and encouraging the parents of the district to attend. I think that would be really helpful with regards to the choices parents need to make in the next few months regarding vaccinating children under the age of 12. I will say, for my own personal standpoint, I'll be vaccinating my kids. I, again, have a background in virology. I'm very confident this is the right choice. And I hope that going forward, you consider having doctors from the community talk to parents and encourage them to take this step. Thank you.
And Mr. Katanis, that is the last individual signed up for comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the comments. Okay, that takes us to 1.9. Motion to approve the following minutes. That would be the regular board meeting of May 12th and the Operations Committee meeting of June 2nd. Can I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. And also, I just want to make mention of the fact that we did have an executive session before this regular board meeting that we have to only discuss legal or personnel issues at, and those are two subjects that we cannot discuss in public. So I'm just making that known to everybody. Okay, that takes us to payment of bills. Okay, we have some general fund expenditures of approximately 1.4 million, procurement card of approximately 9,800, SFE 89,000, and GOB bond proceed funds of $91,104.79. So can I have a motion to approve that?
Move. So move.
Second.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments for those line items? Okay, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that takes us to treasurer's report. We have a treasury report for April 2021. And can I have a motion to approve that?
Moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments concerning that treasurer's report? Okay, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. That takes us to the report of the Secretary of the Board. That would be Mr. Taylor, our CFO.
George, no report for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes us to the Curriculum and Technology Committee. Mrs. Klinger, please.
Okay, we had a curriculum and technology meeting on the 21st of May. As usual, it was jam-packed with information. We went over the teaching and learning update. We talked about the staff continuing to look at the 3 possibilities of a new reading curriculum. They want to talk about it more, observe other districts, talk to administrators in other districts, and continue to pilot different parts of each of these programs before a decision is made. We also talked about the Algebra 2 textbook into math, which they're going to use for Algebra 2. Under that, we also talked about the Summer Academy offerings to our staff, which was book studies, workshops, curriculum writing, webinars, online courses, independent studies, and health and safety. Zach and Kelly talked about the curriculum, the elementary curriculum, the reading in particular, but that the staff really likes the Zern math program, and that this year they'd like to tweak that a little bit. Hopefully we're planning on being in person so that they can work on that better in person. And then they will try to, in 2021 and 22, transition into working on the new reading curriculum. We also have new science standards that will be out in 2025. And we also discussed a STEM specialist in the elementary schools as another special for the students. Then each administrator of the 3 buildings presented the changes to their handbooks for the 21-22 school year. And with that, I would like to move item 2.1 to 2.3. 2.1 is the graduation list. The graduation was held last Wednesday, which it was a fabulous event. So kudos to everyone who had anything to do with planning. I think everyone was extremely happy. 2.2, we have an agreement with Anmentum and the district, and that's for the reading eggs materials. And 2.3, we have an agreement between Community Services for Children and the district, which is a pre-K program. May I have a motion to approve those items? Or a second? I moved it.
Second.
Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding that?
I really need the graduation list to go through. Just kidding.
Yeah, I
Aaron's
just,
counting on that.
yeah, I want to echo those sentiments. I think graduation was really something special. I think everyone involved, like you said, Carol, it was better than I thought it was going to be, from the screen to the presenters. The students were amazing. Some of their speeches just was well beyond their years. We really are putting out some wonderful individuals into this world. And I just think it's something we should think about in the future, because I think everyone had a great view. The screen and the music was spot on. So again, kudos to everybody that did that. It was a wonderful event, and you almost didn't mind the rain.
Yeah, I have to agree. That was my first Salisbury graduation, and I was just absolutely floating by the end of the night. It was such a wonderful evening.
And yeah, and as a parent, I really liked it. It was really nice. And we're so grateful we could do it in person. And of course it had to rain. That was just what we expected in this year, so.
And you know what? My husband and I watched it online, and the production quality and the effect of the video and the audio, along with, of course, the graduation, was a really awesome way to experience it, and not being able to attend personally.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great night. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Klinger.
Should we vote on that?
Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't have the vote yet? I guess we need to do that, especially since Becky made that request.
Please, yeah.
All right, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, now you're done, right, Carol?
Yes, the next curriculum meeting, I believe the curriculum meeting in August is canceled. The next curriculum meeting will be in September, the end of September.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you. Okay, that takes us to the operations section of the meeting. We had a meeting on June 2nd, and Mr. Taylor went over the final budget, which we will be voting on tonight. All school deal, Mr. Ganal had some information for us then, which we will be voting on tonight relative to apparel and various miscellaneous things that are normally ordered, and now we're going to have a contract through Under Armour. ESSER funds update, and we had a discussion regarding elementary community bus stops. So our next meeting will be August 4th. And with that, I would like to look at today's agenda regarding operations. And we will be having a roll call vote on 3.1, roll call vote and discussion on 3.1, the health and safety plan. And we will be having a roll call vote on 3.2, which is actually approval of the budget. So with that, I'd like to move items 3.3 through, bear with me a second here, through 3.28 for approval. And can I have a second on that?
Okay.
Okay, any questions or comments regarding those line items?
George, I have one question.
Sure.
3.7, I thought we had discussion about lunches. There would not be a cost to students. Am I mistaken?
I can handle that. You still have to set lunch prices, but because of the different things with the federal government and approvals, we are still operating under the summer seamless option program like we had this year that allowed for the free lunches, and that is continued into next year. But we still have to pass what we would charge in the event that program ends during the school year. We just have to officially set the prices. So yeah, at this point, we do not anticipate students paying for meals, but if at some point in time during next year they do, this would be the rates.
Thanks for the clarification, Mike.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Okay, with that.
Hey, George, before you move, I just wanted to make sure if anybody had any questions about the Under Armour agreement. And if anybody had any questions about that, I'd be more than willing to offer any insight that I have. Sounds good.
Okay, looks like we don't have any there, Joe.
Thanks,
Oh.
Joe, for that.
Okay, all right, so those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Now we'll go to 3.1. Do you have a preference, Lynn, whether we go to 3.2? Should we go to 3.2 first?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, we'll go to 3.2, which is this year's budget. Is there anything that you would like to say regarding that, Mr. Taylor, before we vote on it?
There's no change since the presentation at the beginning of the month. It's still total expenditures are $39,946,392. The real estate millage would be 21.1259, which is a 3% increase over last year, which is what the Act 1 index is. So it's no changes from before.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, unless there's anything that the board would like to discuss regarding that, I'd like to have a roll call vote, Mr. Taylor. Any comments or questions from any of the board members?
George, Sam DeFrank, the only thing I'd like to add, one, I'd like to applaud the board for passing this budget and what we've done. But bring clarity to that, you know, there is still a deficit between our expenditures and our revenues that we've been able to utilize funding for. But that funding is not, it's one time or several time. So there's still some work to be done, and board knows that, to align our ongoing revenues with our ongoing expenditures. And we'll need to stay focused on that and try to bring that in alignment sooner than later. But I do applaud all the effort and everything the board has done and the administration to get us to a balanced budget.
Okay, very well put, Sam. Thank you. Okay, unless anybody have any other questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Taylor, can we have a roll call vote on the 21-22 budget, please?
Mr. DeFrank,
Yes.
Ms. Frick,
Yes.
Mr. Gatanos, I apologize. I was on mute. I was trying to get your attention and I just took off my video. I think you still need to move that because we pulled it out. So we need a
Okay.
motion and a second and then the vote.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out, Christine. Okay, I'd like to move item 3.2, the 21-22 budget approval for approval. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, Mr. Taylor, can we have a roll call?
all right, Mr. DeFrank,
Yes.
Mrs. Frick,
Yes.
Mrs. Glenister,
Yes.
Mr. Ganal,
Yes.
Mr. Hattinger,
Yes.
Mrs. Klinger,
Yes.
Mrs. Nemitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ziegler,
Yes.
and Mr. Gatanis.
Yes.
And it passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for everybody's work concerning this budget. It's always a challenge. And I thank everybody involved. Okay, that takes us to item 3.1. I would like to move that, which is the health and safety plan. I'd like to move that for approval. Can I have a second?
I'll second that, George.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I'd like to open it up for discussion and or questions. Can we go through, Mike, if you don't mind, if you want to go through the names alphabetically, if somebody does not have any comments, just say pass and we'll move on to the next person, if that's all right with everybody. I think that might be a lot more organized. So, Mike.
Yep.
You.
Mr. DeFrank, do you have any comments or questions?
Well, the only comment I have, and we've discussed this and debated it thoroughly as a board, is that although we'll be voting on this tonight, this is something that will be ongoing. It'll be something we'll keep reviewing, and there's a high potential for us to amend or change our position on this as we go forward. So we'll be keeping and continue to question the people we get information from and be open to information that's out there. So I hope the public understands that as we move forward.
All right, Mrs. Frick?
Yeah, I just want to agree with what Sam said and to notice and for the public to note that we are going to revisit this and update it as needed. However, we needed to put out a statement and submit it as to the rules and regulations of being a school board.
Mrs. Glenister.
Yeah, and I'd like to say we're, listening to the doctors. We hire, we have a school physician, we have a school, St. Luke's Health Network, and we're listening to the CDC. None of us on the board are doctors, and I continue to say, I'm sorry, but that's who we have to listen to. I'm tired of the masks too, but just because we're tired of it doesn't mean we can be done with it. And we have a whole population of students who actually at this point can't be vaccinated. And the CDC guidance is, if you're in a commingled group with vaccinated, unvaccinated people, at the very least, you should be wearing a mask. So I'm fully on board with them continuing to wear a mask, because if we play it backwards and something happens, I don't want to have made a decision that made no sense based on the advice we're getting from our experts in the field. If we had a legal issue, I'd talk to Christine, the attorney. If we had, another topic that I don't know anything about, we consult the experts. So it's not about what we feel, but it's about what the science says. And yes, science changes. Things have changed. Should we wear masks? Should we not? That's changed over time, but that's exactly how science works. So I just think we do the best we can right now, and then we can revise it when we need to, but I don't want to put our students at unknown risk. And who are we, whose rights are we violating by wearing masks? What about the child who lives with a parent who has an immunocompromised condition? Is it okay for that kid to be exposed to a virus that could, potentially kill a parent or a family member just because other people don't want to wear the mask? I just don't think that's asking too much. They're in school, they can all get educated. We're not, infringing on anybody's educational rights. I just think it's important that we follow what the doctors are saying.
Mr. Ganal.
Yeah, I'll echo all the comments that have come before me too. My biggest driver in all of this is how do we get our kids back into the classroom as soon as possible now, and that being in the fall when they come back. But how do we do that in the safest manner is we have to listen to the experts. I think Becky's analogy of what I would ask our Christine, if we had a legal question, then we ask doctors for questions when it comes to medical advice. So I will keep listening to those specialists and those professionals that can offer us the best guidance to make sure that we do keep our kids in the classroom as much as long as possible, which if we do this right, we hopefully don't ever have to call a last minute audible and have to go virtual again.
Mr. Hattinger.
I would say, yeah, same. I have a personal view on this, and it's not necessarily maybe even the way I vote all the time, because I'm voting not for myself and how I feel, but for the parents, for the kids, for my grandchildren. And in a case like this, I know how I feel. Every one of us, even though we're board members, we're just parents and grandparents and people in the community. And we're all going through the same things everyone else is when we walk in a store or walk in anywhere else. And we see some people don't have them, some people are wearing them. But one thing I do know is I'm not a doctor, and I don't even feel qualified to decide which doctors are telling the truth. And because I've heard them both sides of this coin. The only thing is we do rely on specific people, and we are relying on them in this case also to steer us in the right direction and to keep our kids safe and to keep them in school and to get them in school as quickly as we can. So that's pretty much it.
All right, Mrs. Klinger.
Okay. I agree with what everyone said, and I am wholeheartedly, I want these kids back in school, and I want them back in school safely. And I'm comfortable with approving this tonight, knowing that it's a fluid document that we will be monitoring this throughout the summer. And if things change, this is not written in stone at this point. We will change it according to the guidance that we get from the qualified people. And we will take into consideration all the comments parents have made. But please remember, we will be monitoring this, and this may change. We're not saying this is the gospel right now. We need to vote on something at this point, and we will be looking at it in the future before school starts.
All right, Mrs. Nemitz.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to add that hasn't already been said, but I think it's important to note that I feel like we have a lot of conflict on this issue because, you know, up until now, the state and the CDC have pretty much agreed with each other. And at this point, the state is making decisions based on primarily economic factors, whereas the CDC is still making, you know, and only making health decisions. And that's, you know, that's what we need to consider primary importance. So, you know, again, like Carol just said, this is a fluid document. We're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to make changes as we need to. And that's it.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Again, being alphabetically last, I don't know how many other new comments I might have. Sarah and Carol and everyone said it. We haven't seen the last of this document. This is a required document with a required timeline to put a plan forward by the district. And we just know there's going to be changes. We'll see this several times prior to kids going back to school. We've had so many changes every few weeks. I don't feel this is any exception. We want our children back in school. I want our kids back in school. I was overjoyed going back into the school and reading to kids again and seeing the kids there. And they are so resilient. I just feel we have these hired professionals that give us the guidelines. We are lay people, we are not MDs. We have to listen to what they're saying. So get them back in school, and we move forward with continued guidelines that'll come to us over the summer, and we change what we need to change.
We are expecting additional CDC guidance to come out. We don't know when it's going to come out. We've heard it's coming out in coming weeks.
May I just add one more thing that we also have to remember, we have kids coming in the building soon for summer school. So this isn't just about what's happening in the, in August. We also have to consider what's happening in the more recent, future here.
Mr. Taylor, can I vote?
Yep, it's up to you now.
I just reiterate everything that everybody else said. So I'm for the approval of it. Okay, with that, we'll have the roll call vote now. So
We have to move
Mr.
it
Taylor,
first, George? Did we
No.
move it?
You have a motion and a second.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. It was so long ago, I think I guess I forgot.
All right, Mr.
and you haven't
DeFrank.
even voted yet.
Yes, yes.
All right, Mr. Taylor, can we have a roll call?
Yep, Mr. DeFrank.
Yes.
Mrs. Frick.
Yes.
Mrs. Glenister.
Yes.
Mr. Ganal.
Yes.
Mr. Hattinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Klinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Nemitz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Yes.
And Mr. Gatanis.
Yes.
And the resolution passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, that takes us to Personnel Committee. Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you. On tonight's agenda, we have items 4.1 through 4.24. Included in these items are our retirements, which we were able to share with Mary Kay and Elizabeth at the beginning of the agenda. We have some resignations. We have some reinstatements of employment for some folks, hiring of some folks. We're also approving our summer custodial help program for this coming summer and some tasks. We have a few folks being hired for that. We do have an assignment transfer, building transfers. We do have 2 FMLA requests. We also have our extracurricular activities position list for approval for the 2021-22 school year. We also have a few contracts between our Act 93 folks, our coordinator of HR, for our CFO and superintendent, and then again, the confidential support staff and secretaries. As always, we always have substitute additions or changes. And speaking of substitutes, we also are going to be voting on the substitute rate of pay for 21-22. And we have some hiring of volunteer coaches. So for your approval tonight, as I mentioned, I'd like to move 4.1 through 4.24.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments to Mary regarding these personnel items?
I just need to recuse myself on item 4.17.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Audrey.
Okay, that being said, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mary. Okay, that takes us to the policy committee. Audrey Frick, do you have anything regarding policy you'd like to bring up?
You're on mute, Audrey.
My answer is no.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Mr. Ganal, do we have anything regarding student activities? I don't know if you want to discuss anything regarding the our agreement with Under Armour or no?
I can touch on that, but first and foremost, I just wanted to touch on the end of the year events that all the students have. I think that's kind of something I know all the students look forward to. I mean, you have field day at SES, and then you have this was actually my first experience with picnic day at the middle school, and it was just from my 2 alone. I mean, the reviews on it was great all around, and it's just I know it's something that all the kids look forward to. And then high school, obviously, graduation. I wasn't able to attend, but everything I heard, it was just it was a wonderful night and opportunity for almost a little bit of normalcy to everybody. So I just wanted to come on that. But as far as the Under Armour deal, it's more of an agreement that we have with a company named Campus Close, and we explored several options with different organizations. But what we're in essence working towards here is when we kind of set an arrangement up to work with a specific name brand, we can earn rebates back to use for other equipment, for other uniforms, for other things, where we have guaranteed dollars that come back to us. And then we can extend that even into our the campus, or the store that we have, the online store that we have, and offer specific discounts to individuals that would use that site. So it's just a great deal all around. There was a couple different options. We have a history with some of these individuals, so it worked very well, and it was financially worked out to be very beneficial for the district. So I'm pretty happy with it, and we'll all be in the same type of uniform.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
And just to recognize our Director of Student Activities and Athletics, Ms. Deeb, as well as Mr. Taylor, for their work on this. Really looking at a variety of options and trying to identify an option that best meets our needs. So appreciate Ms. Deeb's leadership, as well as the work that Mr. Taylor did.
Thank you, Len. Okay, that takes us to 7.1, Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit. Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you. Tonight, I'd like to share our most recent IU student count, we have 134 students receiving services at the IU, with the highest being occupational therapy and IA support. And there's several right at the same amount of being serviced, which is our speech and language, physical therapy, and adapted phys ed. So again, we had 134 students being provided services by the IU. In addition, I do have an item to be moved tonight, 7.2, which is our agreement with the IU for Discovery Education streaming. This allows our teachers to access materials online. It also has allows the IU 21 to provide professional learning opportunities for personnel of how to use the Discovery Ed streaming. These related services total $1,800. There are 482 students, it appears, that are using the Discovery Education experience. I don't have anything further, Mr. Katanis, as my board meeting for the IU is this coming Monday evening. So I just have item 7.2 to move for you this evening for approval.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding that for Mary? Okay, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mrs. Ziegler. Okay, that takes us to L-Tri-C, Mr. DeFrank. Do you have a
Yes.
report for us?
Yes, I do. At our board meeting, which actually was a hybrid board meeting where we had people in attendance as well as people online. It happened to be one of the more energetic meetings you have. Every now and then there's one that stands out more than the other. And the reason for that, it was a program that was started by a bunch of honor students, what we call the Meadows program. And their idea they had is, instead of just having large areas of turf and grass just growing, actually go out and plant and develop Pennsylvania wildflowers and bring nature flowers back, first for the bees who go out and pollinate, but also as a learning experience of having another way to have wild vegetation next to students and learn from that. So they began that. They actually got their own grant and they actually planted an entire field. Now this thing has snowballed to now the school has built outdoor classrooms and is developing a tree grotto of natural indigenous trees to where they can actually bring students outside and have them learn directly horticulture for the trees that are there. And 2 more wildflower meadows are planned for the campus with walking paths, which will open up the opportunity for all regional schools to come out there and utilize these classrooms and learn firsthand of the beauty of nature, horticulture, and what all these different plants and trees do for us in our environment. So this started with the little idea of a group of honor students, and it has actually exploded into a huge program at L-Tri-C. So it's something that when you see that, you look at that, it makes you say the beauty and the wonder of someone having a great idea and working hard to make it happen, and how it just brings people together, the entire campus, and what has grown into be now. This is actually going to be a learning campus with classrooms outside for not just L-Tri-C, but for the whole community. The only caveat, it does take 3 years before you get a wildflower field. So the first year you go out there and look for the wildflowers, you see some really lumpy grass and doesn't look we mowed. So come back in 2 more years and you'll see the wildflowers, and the grotto will be there sometime next year with all the indigenous trees. I think this is a great program that they're starting and a great opportunity going forward for our students to utilize these facilities. And that is my report.
Sounds good. And I'm assuming, Sam, this is at their main campus in Schnecksville?
Correct. That's in Schnecksville where it's at. The first field's already 1 year into it, and they have 2 other large fields. I think it will extremely beautify the campus. And one thing I will add, this is done routinely in Europe. Europeans don't mow grass, they plant wildflowers and all their overpasses, all their different areas. So it's an idea that they had, but it's something that is well-founded and utilizes elsewhere beyond the US. So it's quite encouraging.
Great. Thank you for that report.
Yep.
Okay, that takes us to LCTI, Ms. Nemitz.
I have no report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, PSBA Legislative Policy Council, do either Audrey or Becky have anything to report?
I do have a few things.
Okay, great.
As usual, they're working on charter school reform, and the Pennsylvania School Board Association has opposed a new version of the Senate Bill 1, which we were hoping was going to reform that, because it does, according to them, it doesn't adequately address the critical need for charter school funding reform. They're urging all citizens to reach out to their legislators to encourage them to engage with stakeholders to try to develop legislation that addresses the policy and funding reform in a comprehensive manner. If you would like to look on their website, psba.org, they have a charter school task force report that they've done, like a multi-year effort to study the issues and to develop a whole set of recommendations. So if you're interested in that, you can check out their website. It talks about how they're trying to improve the charter school landscape by assuring accountability and transparency, saving taxpayer resources, and ensuring taxpayers are aware of how their public education dollars are being spent. Nearly 9 in 10 school officials statewide have said they plan to use that $6 billion in federal COVID relief money to fill the gaps created by a year of lost learning and to purchase the technology to assist in that learning, which is not surprising to any of us. The State House hearing examined school mental health needs, another big issue we've been talking about. They're talking about the ability of Pennsylvania schools to deliver what experts call an increased demand for mental health services due to COVID-19, which is not surprising. So there was a recent State House committee hearing discussing that, and they're trying to come up with a better way to handle it by potentially offering some funding, which would be great, like for school principals, psychologists, and mental health service providers. The Education Department plans to use federal money under the Federal American Rescue Plan to address the mental health needs. They've already received a $1 million grant from the Institute of Education Sciences to study the impact of the pandemic on students. So let's hope that translates into some, funding for us. And then in the national news, a lot of schools are, not surprisingly, are having a lot more students in their summer school programs trying to make up for the learning loss issue. I know we're having some programs in our district as well, so none of that is a surprise, but it sounds like people are trying to address what happened over the past 18 months and hoping we can get back to something back to a regular, get back on track of our normal school year. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky.
George,
Okay.
George, one item I just want to add real quick that I didn't bring up on my report. I was elected treasurer for another year by LTRIC. So just want to add that.
How much does that pay?
Twice as much as last year, which was squat.
Wow. That's a heck of a raise.
I was doing well, so they gave me a nice bump.
Okay. All right, thank you. As far as the PSBA voting delegate, does it matter who moves that, Mike or
Nope.
Lynn?
Nope, any board member can move it.
Okay, I'll move it. Item 7.6, PSBA voting delegate, and that would be a recommendation for Michael Taylor as being the voting delegate for the 2021 PSBA Legislative Policy Council. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions for Mike or anybody regarding that? Okay, seeing none, those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Roddick, do we have a solicitor's report?
Not tonight. Thank you.
Okay, great. And again, thank you for all you do for us. And Ms. Roddick, in case some don't know it, is a principal at King Spry law firm, and she's always been very helpful and very knowledgeable. And thank you, Christine.
Thanks. I appreciate the comments.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, superintendent report, Ms. Feeney Hetton.
Okay, just a few items here. I'm going to go ahead and screen share. All right, first of all, I want to recognize our wellness committee and specifically Mrs. Welliver and Ms. Sugra for their work with the Fit Falcon Challenge. You've probably seen this through emails and posts on Facebook, but also want to recognize the sponsors who donated prizes for our winners. You can see those listed there, as well as the Salisbury Education Foundation. So appreciate that, and great to celebrate with our wellness committee. Thank you to our community members and staff who serve on that committee, which is led by Mrs. Tara Mossman, our coordinator of HR. Also, congratulations to Dana Sugra, who wrote a Highmark Foundation grant. And this is a grant that she wrote for Tower Garden in her classroom. So hands-on science for her learners. We do have a couple of other Tower Gardens throughout the district that have been acquired through grant funding, but congratulations to her. And it's going to be a great opportunity for our SCS learners next year. Several of you have mentioned graduation. It was on the turf. It was a beautiful ceremony, a lot of stress with the weather, not knowing exactly how it was going to play out. Hats off to Ms. Morningstar and Mr. Mushlitz for their planning, and Ms. Pavkovic, our custodial staff, who really worked diligently to make sure that graduation was possible outside on the field, but also set up an inside option so that if we had to move inside at the last minute, we could do so. Our graduates sat on the field facing their guests and parents, and Ms. Morningstar, Mr. Mushlitz, our director of facilities, worked to make sure that everybody could see, and also contracted with a production company and that Jumbotron you see in the back to really make sure that our guests could have a good experience with this outdoor graduation. Our student speakers were amazing. Their messages were clear, and our students were excited as they received those graduation diplomas. And it wasn't until conferral of degrees that we had a little bit of rain finally, but really nice. The students could process out onto the field and then meet their families. The rain stopped just in time to meet their families and take some photos. So thank you to everyone who worked on the planning to make that happen. And it was a great event. Thank you to everybody who attended. And you know, I think our learners really enjoyed it, and so did our staff and our guests. We had a lot of positive comments, even with the rain. So that was great. Just a reminder to our community that we do have, the office has reduced public facing hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 3. Our staff is still working. We just have an opportunity to flex hours a little bit in the summer, and that'll go through August 20th. The district's offices and schools will be closed on Monday, July 5th. Our first day of school back in August will be the 30th for orientation and the 31st for all students. And those are just a few reminders. And that's the conclusion of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to any new business from the board or the administration.
So there were a couple of questions. We do have Dr. Fabian here from St. Luke. She's joined us. If the board wants to hear her opinion regarding masking directly, and maybe it would be helpful for our community members to hear that opinion directly, if that's agreeable to you, Mr. Katanis, and to the board.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
All right, so Mr. Taylor, her name is Mary Fabian, and we'll have to give her rights to discuss, to talk.
Yeah, she was here, but she appears to have.
Oh, we lost her.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Sorry about that. It looks like we just lost her. But we can absolutely bring her back to have a conversation. I appreciate the suggestion from one of our community members to help our parents understand why our health partners are making these recommendations.
Okay, hopefully we'll be able to get her back soon. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're at citizen inquiries and comments, and no, we were not cutting anybody off. It's just that the first one is for agenda items, and it's this one here that's for things other agenda or things off the agenda. So do we have anybody? Mike?
Yes, we currently have 3 people signed up. We'll start first with Mrs. Laura McKelvey, and it'll just be 1 second, let me get her on. All right, Mrs. McKelvey.
Thank you. This is Laura McKelvey. I'm at 1780 33rd Street Southwest. 2 quick things. First, on behalf of the Salisbury Elementary School PTO, I wanted to thank numerous board members and Mrs. Sweeney Henton, who came and to the ice cream festival, contributed their times and baskets, and we just appreciate the support of the elementary school. So thank you very much for that. Secondly, I wanted to bring up 2 issues pertaining to the Sunshine Law. The first is relatively minor, but still important. According to Reading Eagle Company, the Council of City of Reading, reasons stated by the public agency about the need for an executive session must be specific, indicating a real discrete matter. In other words, when an executive session is announced, either before or after the meeting, saying it's for legal or personnel reasons is not sufficient. You need to have a discrete matter. For example, we discussed the need for an assistant superintendent. Secondly, I have no comment as to whether or not an assistant superintendent is needed. I have no idea. I don't work in the district. But I will say that I am concerned once again that you violated the Sunshine Law by only discussing it in executive session. The law states that while an executive session can be held in order to discuss personnel items, official actions cannot be taken during an executive session. They must be taken during a public board meeting. And the definition of an official action includes decisions on agency business made by an agency. So the decision to fill a position that was left vacant, or in my opinion, to create a new position of assistant superintendent would fall under that category and should have been at the very least voted on in a public meeting rather than discussed in executive session only and then just randomly posted on the district website. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Russell Landy. It'll be 1 second, and we'll have Mr. Landy on. All right, Mr. Landy.
Okay, I don't know if I have 3 minutes or not. I didn't understand what you were saying earlier as far as, but anyway, I'll have to make it fast because you made it clear there you have 3 minutes. So the first thing is, thank you to all the teachers this year for their perseverance through the hurdles they faced for the entire school year. Virtual, mass, are we going back to school? Are we not? Are we going back? Kudos to every single teacher for getting it done and having to deal with everything they had to deal with. So I personally, and everybody in my circle, thanks you from the bottom of our heart. And also they had to deal with the uncertainty of what the school board was going to roll out. And that kind of changes as the wind changes direction. And it did show, thank you teachers, how it could have been face-to-face months far earlier than our school board had chose to do. Secondly, substitute teacher pay remains unchanged, apparently. I could be wrong, but it appears that it's going to be remaining unchanged. I could tell you this, that if you want it to be competitive, you're going to have to go over $120 a day, which is roughly around $17 an hour, something to that effect. And it goes up in tiers depending on how much you are subbing. The point being, competitive means you don't keep equal with the people next to you, you do better. And you can ask Mr. Brem or Mr. Parliament or any principal what they have to do to fill positions when they don't have substitutes. So if any member of the board has actually gone into a school on a regular basis, I think you should see there's a problem with substitute teachers and trying to get that filled. And the only way you're going to address that at this point is you're going to have to raise the pay. Because when McDonald's is starting at $17 an hour and you got FedEx at UPS $28 an hour, and you don't need degrees for that, you're going to have problems. That's going to continue to go on. Amazon $17.50 an hour. I could go on and on. So my suggestion would be to reconsider the substitute pay. Third, I recognize the school board cannot, we'll say, get too involved with the Salisbury Youth Association, but I know that they allow the kids to use some of the fields, and they do make public announcements on the Salisbury school websites and things. That being said, SYA 10U girls softball plays at the Harry S. Truman, or the new Salisbury Elementary School, on their field. If any member gets out of the office and can actually look at the field, you'll see that it's rather pathetic. Now, the girls did great this year. They may not have won any games, but they did great. They had spirit, and those are the girls that are moving to middle school and into high school and to college. And what are the benefits of that? Well, scholarships, for instance. It also puts our school district out there the more that we move forward. So if you see that the other fields that the other kids play on, the boys and everybody else, then you'll clearly see that the girls are not getting their fair share. And it really shouldn't matter that they're girls. They deserve equal protection, and they equal treatment, and they deserve respect. They have spirit, passion, drive, and most of all, they're Salisbury residents and students of this Salisbury Township School District. Now, I know that maybe some members on the board might have boys who play SYA sports, and I'm certain that those boys don't play in such bad conditions. So is it asking too much to have the board play some role in equal the playing field so the girls can have good quality fielding compared to everybody else? They're girls, but they deserve the same treatment as boys. Lastly, candidates for the school, members of the board, you all volunteered to be on the board. That comes with the responsibility that you respect, and you have to hear or at least accept other opinions and contrary to your own. To nearly cut out the public response, to me, is akin to telling members of this community that their voices will only be heard to a minimum only because of the PA Sunshine Act, which states that public comment in some form has to occur. Otherwise, I'm getting the impression now that nobody on this board wants to hear from the public because you don't want to hear any opposition. Now, we're talking about a population of almost 14,000 residents. So I ask every member of the board, why is it that even during everything going on, when you had all the residents that were chiming in, tuning in, turning in, listening, no, I didn't see any really saying, hey, members of the school board, bravo to you. You're doing a wonderful job. Why is that? Why is it that 14,000 residents and you're getting, I don't know if you've got any? That's got to be telling you something. So all I'm saying is maybe it's time for members of the school board to take a look at the mirror and see what's going on. And I will say this, that we're talking about healthcare professionals, and you're talking about these masks, and you're hearing what the members of the community are saying. I'm just saying that what healthcare professionals are we listening to at the state level, at the federal level? And if you are these the same healthcare professionals that weren't even following their own advice and guidance, going into restaurants, not wearing masks, not social distancing, going out into public activities with crowds far greater than the accepted standard? So I don't know. I'm just getting some contradictory information from this board. And as you could see that every time I speak at these meetings, I'm still very angry. I'm very angry about how this board handled this last COVID situation with the schools, how you're conducting yourself now. And to be quite frank, and I mean this in all due respect, and I know that I probably severed any chance of me becoming a member of the staff, but I'm really starting to feel like there's a piece of arrogance that's going on within this board. I see the smirks, I see the comments, I see the way that you conduct yourselves. And quite frankly, I don't appreciate it. I pay a lot in taxes. I'm in the schools and I see what's going on. I never see any members of the school boards going there. So all I could say is maybe you could come down a level to our level and see what we're trying to tell you, that we want you to represent us and we want you to listen to us. And we want you to see what's going on out there, because right now it's the school board against everybody else. And it's not supposed to be like that. We should all be working together as one. So I'm going to continue to speak out at all costs. And I know that like I said, I have severed probably every bridge at this point, but I can't take it anymore. And I just can't stop talking. I'm not going to sit still anymore. And if the meetings go into the school board, into the building, then I'm just going to show up at the buildings, but I'll stay professional. But I am very unhappy with what's been going on. And I'm telling every member of this board all the way to the top, I'm not the only one. There's thousands and thousands of members of this community that are not happy with your conduct and with your decisions. So please stop and think about the decisions you're making, because you're negatively impacting this community and our students. And it's bad. This is bad business. And we're looking very bad, especially compared to all these other schools. Thank you and good night.
Thanks for your inspiration, Mr. Lanty. Thank you. Do we have anybody else, Mike?
Yes, we have Mike Babb now, and then we have Christopher Freeze after that. Okay, Mr. Babb?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I would like to reiterate to all the parents listening. As of May 31st, the attestation forms expired. You are now able to claim a mask exemption. So I encourage all parents that don't want their children to have to wear a mask to claim their mask exemption. Board and administration are powerless. So claim your mask exemption. Thank you.
Okay, we have Christopher Freeze.
Good evening, Christopher Freeze, 1137 Patricia Drive. So I'm not going to get into the mask discussion tonight. I think that's been discussed a bit, but I do want to touch on the one topic, which was transparency. As a member of the community who tries to stay engaged in what's happening with the district, what's happening with these board meetings, it's been an ongoing struggle for me, and I know other members of the community, to really follow along with what's happening with these meetings. One of the things that might seem like a minor thing is actually not that minor. Tonight's agenda, for example, it was riddled with missing documentation. The current tonight's agenda, I counted 10 items that referenced attachments that were not attached for public review. These things matter. We can say that we're a board that's right with transparency, and these are the types of things that make it hard to balance. These documents are not there. We don't know why they're not there. They're not available for public review. Sure, the community can file right to know requests to receive them, but it would be in everyone's best interest to make these things available. I don't know if it's intentional. I would like to hope it's not intentional, but it would just be ideal if these documents were there so that the public can review them and understand what's happening with the district. This isn't just tonight. This is a trend. It's not just documents. In the last curriculum and technology meeting on June 2nd, the board approved the April 26th board minutes, but they never posted the minutes to be reviewed by the public. How can you have approved minutes that are not even available to be reviewed? Tonight, you approved an agenda that from May 12th that didn't have a number of attachments that were missing from that agenda. That included the CFO's 5-year contract extension. I don't object to that contract. I haven't read it. I happen to think the CFO was doing a pretty good job, but I do object to approving incomplete agendas. I do object to approving minutes that haven't been approved, that haven't been made available to the public. These are just many examples where, your transparency and the trust comes into question. Please clean this up for the sake of transparency. I thank you for your time.
Mr. Gatanis, there is nobody else signed up for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, that takes us to our upcoming meetings, and I'll just go through them quickly. We have an executive session on July 14th at 6:30, a regular board meeting, July 14th at 7:30, operations meeting, August 4th, curriculum and technology meeting. That has been canceled. It was August 4th and we canceled it, as Ms. Klinger said. Executive session, August 18th, 6:30, regular board meeting, August 18th at 7:30, operations committee meeting, September 1st, executive session, September 15th, and a regular board meeting, September 15th, and the curriculum and technology meeting, Monday, September 27th. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Everybody have a good night. Thank you to all the board members, administration, and to the public. And everybody have a good night.
Thank you,
George.
everyone. Thank you to the public for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.